The realm. Do you know what the realm is? It's the 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. A story we agree to tell each other over and over till we forget that it's a lie.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Song of Ice and Fire video. In today's video, I want to discuss some of the things George R. R. Martin said during a recent interview. During this interview, George R. R. Martin explains why The Winds of Winter is taking so long to write. Since we all are A Song of Ice and Fire fans, I figured everyone would be interested in hearing what George had to say, so let's go ahead and take a look. George R. R. Martin is headed to Chicago in a couple days to receive the Carl Sandburg Literary Award and to give a couple of interviews. Ahead of his touchdown in my hometown, he's talking to the Chicago Tribune's John Cass about Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire, and why The Winds of Winter has taken so long to write. Cass covered a wide range of topics, starting with how Martin feels about having millions of fans out there eager to read Winds, the long-awaited 6th book in his saga. Predictably, Martin says it's a mixed blessing. For many writers, Martin explains, the problem is getting noticed at all. He has a very different issue. I do indeed have millions of people waiting for the book to come out, which is very gratifying, but some of them are extremely impatient, and some of them are full of their own ideas about the fates of the various characters. I am glad they can get so emotionally involved with the characters, but sometimes I yearn for the days when I could just work in quiet obscurity, but those days are gone for me, I'm afraid. This is the reality of my life now. Indeed it is, and let's all remember that his time is occupied with far more than A Song of Ice and Fire now. You know that Hulu is developing the series of wildcard stories he edits into his series. On top of The Winds of Winter, he's also writing more Dunk and Egg stories in another volume of Fire and Blood. On TV, he's executive producing an HBO adaptation of Who Fears Death, and of course there are those Game of Thrones prequel shows waiting in the wings. The success of the show and the success of other things has injected a lot of other aspects into my life. So sometimes I lay in bed at night and I'm not thinking about Westeros. I'm thinking about some other problem I'm having, one of the other shows I'm involved with, or a deadline on an anthology I'm editing, or something that's happening with the nonprofit organization I started. All of these other things are filling my head, and that is one of the things that's delayed me. I really have to get Winds done. I have to put myself on a state where I'm not being distracted by other stuff, and that period of time at night is filled with the voices of Tyrion Lannister and Arya Stark, and the other fictional characters who live inside of me. That's opposed to how he prefers to work, when he has the time to luxuriate in his invented world, and is free to think about it unburdened. If my writing is going well, and I'm really in Westeros, it does haunt me day and night, he said. I'm laying there in bed, I'm waiting to go to sleep, the lights are out, and the scenes that I'm going to write tomorrow are in my head. Or maybe the scenes I'm going to write next week, or maybe the scenes from a different chapter. I can't control it. But something starts filling my head, and the characters start coming alive, and I start hearing snatches of dialogue, and I drift asleep with Westeros and Ice and Fire in my head, haunting me. All of that adds up to a lot of distraction, although it's lessened since the main show ended. There was a period where the show caught and passed me, and I hadn't anticipated that happening, so there was a tremendous amount of stress on me a few years ago when that was about to happen but hadn't happened yet. And I was desperately trying to finish Winds and stay ahead, Martin remembered, and it didn't work. The amount of stress that was on me at that time slowed me down rather than speeding me up. Now that the show's over, any stress in that regard is done, but of course we have 5 successor shows in various stages of development, and one of them that just finished shooting the pilot episode in Northern Ireland, and another one that's very close to getting a pilot order. I'm involved with those as well. Game of Thrones, that particular story, may be over on TV, but it's not over for me. I still have these 2 more books to write. And there's other stories in the world of Westeros, which is an entire world, and I'm still deeply involved with those, so believe me, there's plenty to keep me busy. So Martin, for better or worse, has a lot on his mind. I do sometimes wish it had happened to me 30 years ago rather than happening to me at my age, because it does kind of wear me out sometimes, he said. But I still have a fair amount of energy, and I still get a fair amount done. It's kind of ironic, isn't it? If A Song of Ice and Fire were less popular, it would probably get finished faster, but then we wouldn't want it so bad. Food for thought. Finally, Cass did ask Martin about the backlash to the final season of Game of Thrones, coming as close as anyone have I heard in an interview to outright saying he didn't like Season 8, and criticizing showrunners David Benioff and Dan Weiss for botching the big finish. Martin did pretty much the only thing he could do in that situation. I'm not going to comment on that, he said. They're 2 different forms of the same story. When I finish my books, read them. But other than that, that's not something I want to get into. Since George R. R. Martin is still working on the other shows at HBO, I don't think we will be hearing him criticize David and Dan just yet. HBO is still filling his pockets with millions of dollars, so he probably doesn't want to rock that boat. but somewhere down the line, I could see him finally giving his opinion on how everything worked out. We shall see. Anyways, the main reason why I decided to read this is because I know we are all still waiting for The Winds of Winter to get released. Like he said in the interview, it's very hard for him to focus on the one book when he has so many other projects in the works. Not to mention, it has to be incredibly difficult to bring the story to a close when it's already so complex. I still happen to think he's very close to getting it done, but how many of you think we will get Winds of Winter by the end of next year? If you remember correctly, George more or less said that we will get the book next year or else he will allow himself to be thrown in jail. Now I do want to stay optimistic about this, but I also cannot hold my breath because he already missed so many deadlines. Now I obviously love that George is working on the new successor shows because that gives them the best chance of being, well, successful. But we also have to understand that the more time and energy he puts into the other projects, the more time and energy is taken away from finishing The Winds of Winter. I guess you could say it's a double-edged sword. You have to take the good with the bad. Now let me know down below, which would you rather have at this point? Would you rather George spend his time help writing several shows, or would you rather him just finish the book before he focuses on anything else? Leave me some of your opinions in the comment section. Also, let me know what other videos you would like to see me make. I'm always open for suggestions. I want to thank everyone for stopping by, and I also want to thank everyone for supporting the channel. I hope you all have a great day. Bye.